Hey guys, I'm FatBuddyCat, and this is my custom vintage mini bike. Today, we're going to figure out the pivot point and start installing the custom swing arm. After receiving some feedback from some of my friends and welding gurus, I've gotten the okay to throw some 70-18 on this side where I did the 60-13. I'm going to do that now because I'm going to be trying to pull that curse out. And if that's going to have any effect on that, whether it be positive or adverse, I'd rather find out before I do the other thing. Well, I welded these up and then I cleaned them off, and they're pretty warm, so I gave them a few bang bangs. Everything straightened right out. Sweet. Next, we have to get these arms attached to the frame. I have a few parts, a couple ideas, and a little bit of confidence that this might work. The first thing I'm going to have to do is drill this out to 3/4 of an inch. So I guess I'm just going to try to hog my step bit through there and hope I don't break my wrist in the process. Yeesh. I just went ahead and turned this upside down just in case you weren't paying attention to some of the earlier videos. I did do a little bit of gusset work on this frame, including this chassis engine plate thing. So this is the only part I'm really worried about. I don't think it's just going to bend and that's going to be the end of it. And I'm pretty sure there's going to be something I can do a few steps down the road. But before we do anything too crazy, we should probably get something to fit on here and see what we have for clearances. Alright, there's going to be a jack shaft here, there's going to be a sprocket either here or here, chain coming by. It goes back to the swing arm, this way and towards us a little bit. So that's how they get this thing to clear this pivot point. The way these bikes are designed, they sit up in the rear and then the swing arm goes down and out like that. So we're trying to correct all of that and make it a little simpler. So I'm either going to drill these out or I'm going to make this whole section thicker and drill that out. But I really don't want to contend with that. And that is perfect for my bearings for my jack shaft. It's almost like I might, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, well, at least I know what I'm saying. We can add support to this area without interfering with our bearing. But by adding support to this area, we are really adding a lot of support for our jack shaft. So, as big a pain as this might seem right now, this is something that is going to be very beneficial to the build. So, I'm going to commit to this first off. Alright? The chain, when coming by, alright, we're going to be trying to stay inside this frame section. So, if we stay tight to here and we take a piece of 3/16 and, you know, we make some kind of a design that we can weld to this 1/8 inch and to the frame here, you know, we'll make a notch, it'll return back down to the bottom of the engine plate. We can weld it, you know, right around, and then grind it clean. We'll already have a pilot hole, and then we'll just drill through for our 3/4 inch, and it's just going to be animalistic getting through there with the step bit. But if I work from both sides, when I'm done, we can get this. Hopefully I can make one template for this and it'll work on both sides. So I'm just gonna get this done. I think I explained enough where you guys know what I'm going for. So I'm gonna bang this out. And about an hour and a half later, I have these gussets on. I just kind of rounded them out and left them overhanging so I can get a good weld all the way around. You can see the penetration from the stuff going on the inside. I drilled this out to 3/4 with my step bit. I was dreading that, but there it is. So let's get this thing upside down and take another look. This is what I was talking about complete support for this whole section of the frame. I used 3/16. You can see how substantial the side wall on that hole is. Alright, and I welded straight down along the chassis, made sure to get it good here, right up over the actual frame, onto the frame, and then up and over. So that should really help stiffen this whole area up. I have this other brace right here. It's not going anywhere soon. In order to keep as much clearance as we can for our jack shaft coming across our pivot, I'm going to try to make a variation and move the cross member. The original one was located right here in the middle, and this is all they had. This is basically a 3/8 bolt and a 3/8 spacer, which is 5/8 on the outside. This was welded to the two arms right in this area, okay? And everything went on the inside, and then the bolt passed through. Well, we're going to change that, not completely, but a little bit. I'll show you what I'm talking about. Remember, I drilled these out to 3/4, and I'm using a 5/8 shaft. That 3/4 is for a bushing. I'm going to try using bronze. They make them in steel too, which is more durable, but this might be okay. My holes are nice and tight, so I had to lightly tap them in with a hammer. These are called flange bearings. My shaft is just going to be a big 5/8 axle bolt from ombwarehouse.com. They got all kinds of different sizes, and this one might be too long and we might remeasure, but for intended purposes, it'll work. You can see here, it's quite long, but if I had to, I could cut the end off and use a split collar, something of that nature. Or we could order a different one that's the right size and use a nut. I might change this up a little bit. I kind of like the idea of being able to replace this part and this part only. What I'm trying to do is reduce the wear on my pivot here and on my arm. These I can readily get. If I make it so that this thing can come apart, which I am, and I put this in from this side this way, and then put my shaft through this way, and then put my arm over this. Maybe a washer or something. I could cut it down. I only really need it to get through one washer and the arm. Well, only one way to find out, I guess. Try or take some measurements. Either way I look at this, 3/4 of an inch is going to be better than the 5/8. So I'm going to go for it, alright guys? I'm going to drill this out to 3/4 of an inch. Now that these are drilled out to 3/4, I'm just going to take my Dremel little grinding stone and polish out the holes a little bit. And all we're looking for here is for the bushing to just barely slide through, but sort of freely. Okay, so now with my flange bearings going this way so that the cap of the flange is on the inside, I can now put my arms on. After I find a washer, one for each side, 3/4 inch inside diameter. I'm going to be attaching my pivot with a big 5/8 axle bolt. This one just about goes all the way to the end of my flange bearings. I actually think it does. Maybe a couple threads are in there, but mostly shaft. What might change is the way that it's held on. It's definitely not going to be just by one nut on the end. And then the washer goes on. I also made these out of 5/8 washers, so these were drilled to 3/4 perfectly, and then I just hone them to go over my flange bearing. That leaves me just enough space for my swing arm. This will give you a better understanding of what I'm trying to do. The washer in here is giving me space so that my swing arm isn't rubbing against my chassis. This 5/8 bolt, let me try to hold this. It's in there tight, okay? And I want it that way. I honed out the swing arm just ever so slightly so that it'll move on our flanged bearing. That way, when this thing is live, it's only wearing on that bearing and not on the swing arm material, the shaft, or the chassis. The other reason I'm using a 5/8 bolt instead of a shaft is because the head is smaller. I used a bushing on this side, okay, so that my head of the bolt pushes against that bushing, which holds my swing arm on our bearing. This thing moves like hot butter. Over on the other side, you can see kind of what's going on over here, but I didn't cover it up yet. So there's our bearing, the washer, this sits on top, and now I'm going to sandwich a washer on this side, okay? And I'm going to have to cut these threads back and probably re-thread a few. Or I can use something like this. I could also put these in here. The only reason I'm not doing that yet is because I want to find where my chain is going to come past for my jack shaft. Once I figure out where that chain is, if I can fit these on both sides, they're going to be there. If I'm tight on one side because of the chain coming by, then I'll still do it on the other side. That way, if this gets damaged or this one comes off, this side keeps the pivot in and the whole thing from falling off. The swing arm will still be connected to the shock somewhere up in that area. Oh yeah, and don't forget, this is upside down, so it's opposite. Hey, same thing though. I'm going to take this out one more time, but only about this far. I'm going to slide a couple of these onto the bolt. Reason being, they're smaller than the split collars, so they take up less room and they'll hold our flanged bearing right where it needs to be. Alright, we got one for that side, one for this side. I'll put my bolt back in. I'll grab my swing arm, put it on here, put my bushing, my washer, and then my lock collar. Split collar. These things are awesome. So here it is from the bottom, completely assembled. Remember, this is going to get cut off a little bit shorter. Maybe we'll add a nut just to give it like a finished look. But these collars are definitely handling the brunt of this work. No matter what happens down here, these are staying. Next, we got to get this thing flipped over. Now that we have our swing arm mocked up and where it needs to be, we have to figure out where the shock is going to mount. Because after that, we're going to need some sort of cross member. But until I figure out where that goes, I want to figure out where this goes. And that is going to be the next video. Because as always, it's a work in progress. Thanks for watching. Have a good night. And I'll catch you on the next one.